Hi guys, and welcome back to my game room. I thought in this video I'd give a quick update on some of my recent pickups and also go through my gaming setup in terms of the good points, some of the downsides, some of the issues that I come across, and also maybe give some advice to anybody that likes the look of this setup and seen some setups in other videos and thinks, okay, so how can I get started, what are the pros and cons, all that kind of good stuff. So, my first main pickup you can probably see right in front of you here. This is the Xbox One. It needs no introduction, it's Microsoft's latest console. That I picked up, and it comes with Kinect, which I haven't got out because I don't even use Kinect. And I got it with Forza Motorsport 5, which is sat on my game shelf over there. So yeah, I picked this up. To be honest though, I don't really play too many games on it because there aren't too many games that I like. But in the future there will be some exclusives, I'm pretty sure, that I'll want to play on the Xbox One that aren't on the PS4. So I thought I'd pick that up. You can just see at the moment my TV's running the Japanese Sega Saturn version of Virtua Racing, and it's going through the scaler. It looks fantastic. It does look really good. What you've got sat in front of you now is my modified Mega Drive. Unfortunately, somehow my cartridge slot got damaged. You can see there's a pin missing and there's some damage to the side of it. So this Mega Drive unfortunately doesn't work, but of course, if I got a cartridge slot off of another machine that was in good condition, I could replace it by desoldering it off the bottom and resoldering it. But every cloud does have a silver lining, as I'm going to show you with my next pickups. Okay, so in a recent eBay auction that I went for were these two Mega Drives. They were in a job lot of two faulty systems, both of which were advertised as not being able to display a picture. The guy on eBay put that in the description and just said he was selling them off because they were in his loft. He tried them out and he couldn't get them to work. I got both of these two and a few games and also some additional controllers, which I've got one of them here. It's not in too bad shape. I've cleaned it up a bit. Still needs some TLC, to be honest. And I've also got one of the original Model 1 style controllers with the sort of whitish greyish start button there. This one's actually got a longer cable than my original Model 1 controller, so that's nice. But anyway, back to these two Mega Drives. So yeah, when I opened the box of the package I received with these two in, I could kind of see why the guy couldn't get these two Mega Drives to work. He was using the original RF cables. Now, to some people, they'll just say, oh, that's okay. Well, yeah, but on modern day televisions, using RF really isn't the best thing to use, especially for plugging in devices, unless you really have to, unless you've got something like, you know, an Atari 2600 that only has RF. So, with these two, I literally used my RGB SCART cables from my original Model 1 Mega Drive for this one, and to my surprise, it worked straight away. I didn't even need to do anything with it. With the Model 2, however, it did work straight away, but as soon as I plugged the controller in and pressed start to play Sonic, Sonic kept looking up. It was just like as if up was being held on the control pad constantly. He was just constantly looking up. Now, when I stripped the Model 2 apart, I saw this really strange looking yellow wire that was coming from the bottom of the board to the top and was sat somewhere near one of the main chips in the middle of the board. I sort of had a bit of a feel of it, and it came away from the board, and I thought, oh, have I just destroyed the Mega Drive now? Is that somebody's way of repatching a connection back in and trying to fix maybe another problem they had with it? Actually, it turns out that by doing that, I solved the controller problem, and the Mega Drive Model 2 now works absolutely perfectly. There is only one slight issue with this, and that is that the power connection in the back, when I plug one of my power adapters in, which is an official Mega Drive 2 power adapter, the connection's a bit loose, so if it does happen to get moved slightly, sometimes the Mega Drive will sort of sketch out a bit on the screen, and sometimes it will reset itself. Worst case, it will just turn off. But, you know, unless you're moving, or unless I'm rather, moving the cables around a lot, which I don't generally when I'm playing a game, this thing will stay up and will work fine. I've also noticed, and this is a great thing, the sound difference between a high-definition graphics with stereo sound Model 1 Mega Drive versus a Model 2 Mega Drive. There's quite a bit of difference. The Mega Drive 2 sound is a lot more distorted and more sort of muffled than the Mega Drive Model 1. So yeah, what I did was, obviously, having broken my original modified Mega Drive 1, I substituted the case so that I've got my modified case. And as you can see, I've actually got the switches now incorporated into the shell here. And this Mega Drive 1 works absolutely perfectly, and I'm really pleased with it. So yeah, it's got the innards of this one, which as you can see the case is nasty, it's all yellowed, and it's in this one, so I'm really pleased with that. Another pickup that I've got that unfortunately isn't with me, but this game will give you a clue as to what that pickup actually is is a 32X. Now, the 32X was also advertised as a faulty device, and it was advertised as sometimes works. Well, unfortunately, it not sometimes works, just never worked for me. I had it apart, I reseated the ribbon cables, all the common fixes, I gave the cartridge slot a good clean out, nothing. I'd get a black screen the whole time. And yet I've got the connections for the Mega Drive Model 1 to patch it in, and also the RGB SCART cable to plug it into the scaler, and you get nothing. Try a Mega Drive 1 game, you get nothing. So unfortunately, the 32X doesn't work. However, a good friend of mine who initially fixed the controller port on this board here by switching it out for me and doing a bit of handy soldering work, he's got my 32X, and he's actually looking at how he's going to rig up the two boards so we get continuity between the top cartridge slot and the bottom cartridge slot, and that should fix the problem with that 32X, because I think other than that it looks okay. There doesn't appear to be any damage on the boards. So yeah, this is Virtua Racing Deluxe for the 32X. I think you're starting to notice a bit of a theme going on here, because I've got Virtua Racing for the Sega Saturn playing on my Japanese Sega Saturn over there. And as I'm sure you remember from my game selection shelf, you can also see Virtua Racing, the original Virtua Racing for the Mega Drive there. Okay, so hopefully you can see my PS2 games there on the shelf. I'll just come down here and you can see I've got Forza Motorsport 5 for the Xbox One in there. Just some of my controllers for some of the systems. You'll also see I've got some Sega Master System loose carts. I won't go through those on this video, but yeah, I've got some extra Master System games in loose cart form. I also picked up as well a Super Nintendo Turbo controller. You probably can't quite... Yeah, there you go. You can make out some of the turbo switches. I didn't pick it up because it was a turbo pad. I picked it up because it is an officially licensed Nintendo product, and I've only got one Super Nintendo control pad at the moment, so to have that one is awesome as well. Okay, so now it's time to talk about my setup as a whole, give pros, cons, and advice that I may have for anybody that's looking to do something similar to this. So first off, I'll talk about the pros. It's fantastic to have all these systems from my childhood, teenage years, up to my early 20s, for example. It's great to just be able to go over there, pick a game from any one of those systems, come over here and play it on the real hardware. It is absolutely awesome. I mean, sure, I've got the PC sitting over there. It's really well spec'd up, so it can emulate the vast majority of these systems, with the exception, of course, of the 360, the PS4 and the Xbox One. And I know that they can add like graphical filtering and graphical enhancements and all that kind of good stuff, and it's really convenient to have emulators and lots of, you know, games, ROM images, CD images, that kind of stuff stored on your PC. But it is just not the same experience as running games on the actual hardware itself. So that for me is the biggest pro. And if you're a bit of a gaming purist, or if you're a bit like me, you like having the original controllers in your hands, you like having the original systems, then that's exactly why you potentially may well want to do this. So what I thought I'd do now is go through some of the issues that I come across, because that is another part of having this setup. So first and foremost, you're looking at the Japanese Sega Saturn. Sometimes the Japanese Sega Saturn here can act up a bit. It's probably due to the laser, it probably needs to be tweaked. Might even just need a clean, because I haven't done that for a while. But there are times when I'll put a game in, it will struggle to read it. And the discs that I've got are all in pretty much really good condition, so it's not the discs, I think it is the fact that the laser in that Saturn might be on its way out. Mentioned in my original setup video that PlayStation is still on its side. That is also an issue. I mean, sure, it works fine when it's still on its side, but that's not the point. Okay, so this probably goes for all of my cartridge-based consoles. There are times when I put a cartridge in, switch the machine on, and get nothing. A black screen. It's not reading the cartridge. At times I have to take it out and put it in several times before it'll work. Other times I have to give the cartridge a bit of a clean up, and sometimes I have to open those shutter doors and try and blow some dust out of the cartridge slots as best I can. Yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess. The Mega Drives, they generally don't have that problem, or my Mega Drives. The vast majority of the time I can put a cartridge straight into the Mega Drive, be it Model 1 or the Model 2 that I've now got, and it'll work straight off the bat. So, not entirely sure why that is, but there you go. It's just one of them things, one of the downsides to owning this setup. PS2 is generally reliable, don't have any issues with it. My Dreamcast I've had to repair because it had the reset issue, which was a fairly straightforward repair. Sega Master System was originally a repair job because initially when I picked it up it was faulty, turned it on, black screen. I noticed someone had tried to modify it, there was a trace that had been cut, so I repatched that trace back in, and this Master System came back to life. but it works pretty well. Again, this one, at times you'll plug a cartridge in, you might get in the case of this Master System, you'll get the built-in games menu, or you may even get a Master System software error where it can't read the cartridge properly. Okay, and the last bit with my con section, cables. Well, all these systems, they have cables. At least 2 cables. Power cable and a video cable. In some cases with other systems, more, like Ethernet cables for, you know, internet broadband access, and camera in the case of the PS4. So that's another big downside, and I'm not the best at cable management. I have overhauled this a couple of times, but it just seems to look terrible every time I put it back together again. I really do need to take some advice from Retro Game Tech, I think, on this one, on how to cable manage things. So that's really one of my biggest cons, is these cables, because at times they do start to get on my nerves a bit. But I guess the pros for me outweigh the cons, and that's why I've got this set up. Okay, so one last piece of advice. If you are going to pick up, or try and pick up, a setup like this, have a budget in mind. Now, I got a bit lucky with the Mega Drives that I picked up, with the Master System that I picked up, with the Japanese Sega Saturn that I picked up. Basically, I had a budget in mind for each of these systems, and I made sure I didn't go over it. With those 2 Mega Drives, I got lucky. They were in a job lot. Managed to get them working and fixed up easily. So there you go, saved myself a bit of money. If you're a bit of a dab hand at repairing electronics, especially simpler stuff like these machines, why not pick up a cheap console that might have a small issue that you might be able to fix? It's a way of accumulating a bit of a setup if you can get them all working nicely like this. It's worth a go, I would say. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. I'm sure I'll have another video about this gaming setup again soon. I might actually start doing some gameplay, capturing some old games. So thanks for watching.